The sound echoed before the cake even hit the floor. Adrian stood there, frozen, holding nothing but air as the 3-layered birthday cake he bought with his last dignity splattered across the marble tiles like an accident scene. Sandra wiped her hand dramatically, as if touching the cake tray had contaminated her soul. Adrian, she said, shaking her head like a disappointed school principal. Is this what you brought for me? Cake? On my birthday? Are you okay at all? Adrian blinked, heart pounding. Sandra, please, I tried. You know things have been rough. Rough? She screamed so loud the chandelier trembled. Are your mates real billionaires using cake to wish their fiancés happy birthday? I told you what I want. A luxury SUV, full option. Not this bakery nonsense. He swallowed painfully. You know everything crashed. Just give me a little. Enough, she snapped, pointing at him like she was firing a staff. I cannot marry a man whose wealth is on sabbatical. I'm not built to suffer. This relationship is dead, Adrian. Adrian's chest tightened. Sandra, please, don't do this. But she had already rolled out her designer suitcases, 4 of them, forming a convoy of heartbreak. She strutted toward the door without looking back. Every step stabbed him. Every suitcase wheel screeched like judgment, and as the door slammed behind her, a single tear slid down Adrian's face. His birthday surprise for her had turned into a breakup disaster, and just like that, the billionaire who once had everything was left with nothing but a broken heart and a scattered cake. Beautiful viewers, tighten your seatbelts. This story begins with pure chaos. A birthday cake flying across the room, a billionaire fiancé losing everything overnight, a woman choosing money over love. Subscribe now and don't blink, because what you're about to watch will shake your heart. Let the journey unfold. 8 months later after the breakup, nobody in the whole of Victoria Island expected madness that morning. Not the Danfo driver shouting, "Osha! Enter with your change, oh!" Not the banana seller dragging her wheelbarrow like she was dragging Nigeria's economy. Not even the security guard dozing by a gate like he was allergic to work. But then traffic suddenly froze. Not because of LASMA. Not because a cow crossed the road, but because 3 sleek SUVs, black, shiny, and wickedly intimidating, glided to a stop like a scene from an American movie. Car doors opened slowly, and the air changed. Out stepped Mr. Adrian Cole, the 36-year-old billionaire the entire Lagos whispered about, the kind of man whose wristwatch alone could buy a small estate. The business genius, with a face that looked like God carved it on a Saturday morning when he was well rested. They called him the Silent Lion, rich, powerful, handsome, but emotionally colder than a generator that refused to start. Rumour even had it that if you told Adrian, "I love you," he'd reply, open quote, "Please be guided," close quote. But that morning, the universe decided to humble him. He wasn't supposed to come down from the car. He wasn't supposed to look twice. But something strange caught his eye. A young woman, skin dusty, slippers crying for replacement, hair packed like she begged wind to style it, stood at a bakery corner. She wasn't begging, she wasn't making noise, she was just there. Quiet like Lagos didn't exhaust her the night before. Her name was Eliana James. At 23, life had already slapped her, punched her, and thrown her into the gutter. But somehow she still smiled like she was expecting a miracle delivery any minute. She had no parents, lost them both within months. No relatives, unless you count the uncle who seized her father's house and told her to go and hustle like other youths. No home. She lived in an abandoned building that even ghosts refused to enter. And no food, except what she got from washing clothes and carrying loads for market women who believed "God go bless you" was an acceptable salary. But Eliana had something rare in Lagos. A good heart. A very good heart. That was what Adrian saw, but not immediately. Before noticing her, he was staring at an old woman struggling with a load that looked heavier than her entire destiny. Passers-by ignored her as usual, because Lagos people mind their business with shocking commitment. Then suddenly, Eliana rushed forward. "Ma, I beg, give me the load," she said softly, even though the thing nearly bent her spine. The old woman blinked, surprised. "Ah, God bless you, my daughter." Eliana smiled. "Amen, Mama. Let's cross." She raised her hand to stop a car. The driver hit brakes so hard he almost saw his great-grandfather. Eliana and the old woman crossed safely. The old woman prayed for her again. Eliana nodded, still smiling. And that was when Adrian noticed her. From inside his tinted SUV, he watched her like someone staring at a miracle he didn't order. It wasn't her face that got him, though she was beautiful in a tired, innocent, life has beaten me, but I refuse to die kind of way. It was her kindness, her calmness, her courage. In Lagos traffic, she behaved like she had peace of mind. Who does that? Adrian frowned, confused. Driver, he said quietly. Who is that girl? The driver peeped. Sir, she looks like one of those market girls. Maybe she's just... Stop the car. The driver froze. Sir, you mean stop in this traffic? Adrian gave him the kind of look that could restructure a man's destiny. The car stopped. Adrian stepped out. People gasped. Some whispered. One woman even shouted, Jesus! Now Adrian Cole be that! Which girl won't marry this fine man? Only God know. But Adrian wasn't listening. His eyes were on Eliana. Meanwhile, she wasn't looking at him at all. She didn't even know a billionaire was staring at her like she owed him a heart repair. She was already walking away, adjusting her worn slippers, humming small to herself, acting like Lagos sun wasn't frying her destiny. Adrian breathed deeply. Something he hadn't felt in years moved in his chest. Interest, curiosity, or maybe the shock of seeing genuine kindness in a city full of professional pretenders. Whatever it was, his life was about to change, and Eliana had no single clue. Meanwhile, the morning sun was already misbehaving, shining like it had been paid salary. Victoria Island traffic was crawling as usual, but Adrian Cole didn't bother until then rain. The moment the thought of the board meeting returned to his mind, it hit him like NEPA restoring light after 2 days of darkness. He checked his wristwatch. 8:12 a.m. Omo, he was already late. He snapped slightly forward. Let's move, he said to his driver, who immediately stepped on the accelerator with the confidence of someone who had no intention of losing his job today. As the sleek black Range Rover Vogue glided past the spot where Eliana stood, Adrian turned his head one last time. He didn't know why, but something in him refused to look away until the car drifted completely out of sight. Soon, Adrian arrived at Cole & Hart Global Holdings, a building so tall and shiny it could make a first-timer on the island repent from poverty instantly. The boardroom was already packed. Men in expensive suits, women with hair that probably cost more than someone's rent, business partners wearing wide smiles like people who were about to receive a miracle. Everyone was ready to sign the contract of the year, one that would fetch them insane profit. Adrian walked in. The room straightened like soldiers before a general. "Good morning, Mr. Cole," someone said. "Good morning," he replied, but even his voice had lost its usual weight. He sat down and presentations began. Percentages, projections, revenue forecasts, stocks, all the boring but important billionaire things. But Adrian? His mind was on the dusty roadside, on a girl with sunburned cheeks and kind eyes, on how she had helped an old woman with the last bit of strength she had. One of the directors paused mid-speech. "Sir, are you all right?" 20 heads turned. Adrian blinked hard like someone caught sleeping in church. "I'm fine. Please continue." But inside, he was asking himself one stubborn question. How can someone who clearly has almost nothing still give like she's overflowing? When the contract was finally brought out, Adrian signed it. Cameras flashed, people clapped, everybody shook hands like politicians during campaign season. Adrian forced a smile, but deep down he felt nothing. Just that strange pull inside his chest. Something about that girl. He turned to his driver, "Get into the car and drive." The driver nodded and asked to where, sir? Adrian shot him a look that said it all. Meanwhile, on the other side of Victoria Island, Eliana dragged her tired body toward a tiny roadside bakery that looked older than Nigerian independence. Her stomach felt like it was chewing itself. "Please, one small bread," she said gently. The baker, a woman who always looked like she was fighting her own personal battles, handed it to her. Eliana paid and stepped outside, walking slowly toward the pavement. Her steps were soft and weak, as if the ground had more strength than her legs. She sat. She looked at the bread in her hand. It was small, painfully small. She whispered, "I'll manage. I'll manage." She took one slow bite as if she wanted time to pity her. At that exact moment, a luxurious car rolled through traffic. Music humming, AC blasting, leather seats hugging Adrian like a jealous lover. He glanced out the window and froze. It was her. Eliana, the same girl with the quiet strength and kind heart, now sitting on the pavement, eating bread like it was gold. Adrian leaned forward. He watched her, silently, intensely. "She doesn't even have water," he muttered under his breath. Before he could swallow the sadness rising in his chest, another woman approached Eliana, thin, exhausted, looking hungrier than hope itself. "Please, can I have small?" the woman begged. Eliana didn't sigh. She didn't complain. She didn't even check what she had left. She broke her bread in half. "Eat." The woman's hands trembled. "God bless you. Thank you so much." Eliana smiled faintly, even though her own half looked like it wouldn't feed a child. "It's okay. Everything will be fine." Inside the car, Adrian's heart shook. How can someone with nothing still give like that? Right there, something shifted in him. Something deep, unexplainable, gentle. He whispered, "I will help her." From that day, his car passed the same road every morning, every afternoon, sometimes evening. He pretended he was inspecting the island, but even his driver knew the truth. He was searching. But Lagos, in its usual wickedness, hid her well. No matter how hard he looked, Eliana was nowhere to be found. Yet he couldn't stop thinking about her. The girl who shared her last bread. The girl whose kindness tugged at him like a small child pulling a sleeve. One bright morning, Adrian stood before his mirror, fixing his tie, but something felt different. He looked at himself, this billionaire, this powerful man, and whispered, "I must find that girl. I don't know why, but I must." His chest tightened with determination. He entered his car. "Let's go," he said. When they approached the busy market road, Adrian leaned slightly forward, eyes scanning every corner. Then he saw her. Eliana, sitting quietly by the roadside again, looking tired but still calm, still peaceful, still her. "Stop the car," Adrian said. The driver parked immediately. Adrian pointed. "You see that girl?" "Yes, sir. I see her." Adrian took an envelope, thick, heavy with money, and a small card with his personal number and his home address. "Give her this," he said. The driver nodded and walked toward Eliana. "Good morning," he greeted. Eliana looked up, surprised. "Good morning." "My boss sent me," he said gently. "He wants you to have this." He placed the envelope and the card in her hand. "The number on the card is his. If you need anything, you can call him. And he said you can come see him anytime. Just call first." Eliana stared at the envelope. Her hands shook. She hadn't held that much money in a very long time. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would he help me?" The driver smiled kindly. "Because he truly wants to help." He returned to the car and drove off. Eliana sat there, frozen. People walked past. Cars honked. Voices filled the air. But she didn't move. She pressed the card against her chest. "Thank you, whoever you are." Then worry crept in. She didn't have a phone. She didn't know if this was real. She didn't know what to do next. She held the card tightly, afraid to lose it, afraid to trust it, yet unable to throw it away. And just like that, the story between her and Adrian quietly began. Back in Cole & Hart Global Holdings, Adrian Cole sat at his desk, legs crossed, tie slightly loosened, trying to focus on the mountain of work in front of him. But honestly, how could he? Excel sheets and profit margins blurred into meaningless squiggles. His mind was somewhere on the streets of Victoria Island, following a barefoot girl with the most stubborn kind of heart he'd ever seen. Assistants came in and out, asking questions, handing him files, trying to get his signature. Meetings ran late. Phones rang, and somewhere, someone dropped coffee on the carpet, but Adrian barely noticed. His fingers tapped impatiently on his desk. Every time his eyes flicked to the phone, his chest tightened. What if she doesn't call? He thought. What if she's too afraid? Or thinks it's a scam? Meanwhile, in the streets of Victoria Island, Eliana James stared at the card Adrian's driver had handed her. The crisp white card felt unreal in her hands, like someone had handed her a ticket to another world. She counted the money again, muttered a soft, shaky, "God, this can't be real," and then glanced at the small roadside phone booth. The booth was hot, cramped, and smelled faintly of stale airtime receipts, but desperate times call for desperate measures. Eliana paid the operator, her hands trembling like leaves in harmattan, and dialed the number on the card. Each beep echoed in her chest, and by the time the line connected, her heart was hammering like it was about to escape. Back in his office, Adrian was pacing. His phone rang suddenly, an unfamiliar number. He froze, straightened his tie, and lifted the receiver. "Hello." His voice was calm, but there was a note of hope that even he couldn't hide. A soft, nervous voice replied, almost trembling with every word. "Good afternoon, sir. It's me, Eliana James. Your driver gave me your number and cash in envelope this morning. Thank you. And I'm sorry I didn't call sooner. I don't have a phone, so I had to, find a place to make the call." Something in Adrian softened. Of course she didn't have a phone, he thought. Of course, this is Victoria Island, not Silicon Valley. "It's okay, Eliana," he said gently. "I understand." After a pause, he asked quietly, "Tell me, what do you do for a living?" Her voice dropped low, almost embarrassed. "I do small jobs, anything I can find. Wash plates in a canteen sometimes, sweep small shops. Some days I don't even find work, and I sleep hungry." Adrian nodded slowly, feeling a pang he hadn't expected. Words like hers, the raw truth of someone scraping by, hit harder than any boardroom presentation ever could. "And would you like to work for me?" he asked softly. Eliana froze. She looked up quickly, hope and disbelief warring in her eyes. "Work for you?" she whispered. "Yes," Adrian said, a small smile tugging at his lips. "I need someone to help around my house. Simple work. You'll have a place to sleep. You'll eat properly every day. That's it." Eliana's hands shook. She blinked several times, trying to make sense of what she was hearing. "Food? A room? Just like that?" she stammered. "Yes," Adrian said warmly. "If you agree, you'll start tomorrow. My driver will pick you up at the same spot he met you today." Eliana's heart almost burst. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, but it didn't matter. The tears came anyway. "Yes, I will work. I will do my best," she said, voice breaking. "Good," Adrian said gently. "Then we have an agreement." The next day, Adrian called his driver. "Go and pick Eliana James, that girl of yesterday. Pick her up at that same place of yesterday. Take her to the house. Bring her safely." "Yes, sir," the driver replied, already revving the engine like a man who knew he'd be late for lunch otherwise. Eliana waited, sitting quietly on the curb. She whispered a short prayer. "God, please, let this be real. Not trouble. Please." And then, like destiny on cue, the sleek black car rolled to a stop in front of her. The driver stepped out with that same calm smile. "My boss sent me to bring you," he said. Eliana took a shaky breath, looking around at the bustling street one last time. Then she climbed into the car, and the world changed. A moment later, the car glided through clean, wide streets lined with trees whose leaves swayed in the gentle Lagos breeze. Bougainvillea and hibiscus spilled colour along sidewalks that were spotless enough to make her wonder if she had accidentally been transported to a movie set. Finally, the car stopped before a huge mansion. The gates opened with a soft creak, and Eliana's eyes widened. Her heart skipped. She'd never imagined anything like this in her life. "This is real?" she whispered to herself. The driver led her inside. The living room was vast, bright, and shining with polished wood floors that reflected her every awestruck glance. Plush sofas, sparkling glass tables, and a painting so grand it could have its own zip code filled the space. "Please, sit here. My boss will be back soon," the driver said gently. "Do not worry. You're safe." Eliana nodded, hands still trembling, and sat down. She clasped them tightly in her lap, trying to steady her racing heart. She whispered a small prayer again. "God, thank you, thank you." Minutes stretched like hours. Finally, the front door swung open. Adrian Cole walked in, calm, poised, wearing a suit that smelled faintly of cedar and power. He stopped, taking to the nervous figure on his sofa. "Good evening, Eliana," he said. Eliana jumped to her feet. "Good evening, sir," she said softly, bowing her head. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the sofa. They both sat. For a moment, silence wrapped around them like the softest blanket. Then Adrian spoke. "I saw something in you some days ago, something I haven't seen in a long time. Even when you have almost nothing, You still help. You shared your bread. You helped an old woman across the road. You are kind. Eliana lowered her eyes. It was the right thing to do, she said softly. Even if I have little, I can still give little. Adrian nodded, leaning slightly forward. That is why I want to help you. I want you to live here safely. I want to give you work. You will never beg again. You will never go hungry again. You will have a room of your own, good clothes, proper food, and a salary. Tears sprang to her eyes. She covered her face with her hands. I don't know how to thank you, sir, she whispered. You already have, Adrian said quietly. With your kindness. She wiped her tears and smiled. For the first time in what felt like forever, a smile that reached her eyes. I will work hard. I will do my best, she said firmly. Adrian nodded, a small, satisfied smile tugging at his lips, and for a moment neither spoke, but something unspoken passed between them. A spark, a beginning. Life in the mansion quickly found rhythm. Every morning, Eliana woke early, even before the sun, sweeping floors, dusting furniture, preparing breakfast. She moved quietly, purposefully, as if every small task mattered, and Adrian noticed. Sometimes when descending the staircase, he'd catch a glimpse of her humming softly, working with care. Good morning, sir, she would say politely. Good morning, Eliana, he would reply, almost without thinking, a small smile forming on his lips. The more he watched her, the more he realized she wasn't just another helper. She was rare. Then one of those lazy Lagos afternoons where the sun didn't burn but settled gently, painting everything with a soft golden glow. Inside Cole & Hart Global Holdings mansion, the living room felt unusually peaceful. Adrian Cole, seated in his sleek leather chair, stared out at the small garden beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. Eliana, come here, please. His voice was soft but firm. Eliana James, wiping her hands on her apron after polishing the crystal glasses, paused mid-step. Yes, sir, she replied, her tone polite and respectful, but a little wary. Adrian gestured to the chair opposite him. Sit down. I want to talk. Eliana sat slowly, careful not to fidget, as if any sudden movement might break the fragile calm of the mansion. She kept stealing quick glances at him, noting how he looked less like a boss in this moment and more like someone human. Adrian watched her quietly for a moment. She's different. You know, he began gently, I've been observing you, the way you wake up early, the way you move quietly around the house, even when you're tired, the way you still smile at everyone, no matter what. Eliana's cheeks warmed and she lowered her eyes. She wasn't used to compliments, especially not from people who looked like Adrian Cole. I admire that, he continued. It's rare. Thank you, sir, she murmured softly. Adrian leaned back, voice gentler now. Tell me about yourself, Eliana. Really? Her voice trembled just slightly as she spoke. I grew up in my parents' house. They were good to me, sir, before. She hesitated, swallowing. Memories of loss and hardship hovered in her eyes like shadows. Adrian nodded silently, letting her words settle. Then curiosity broke through the quiet. You speak very well. Did you go to school? Yes, sir, she said. I finished high school at 18, but I wanted university, but life had other plans. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed the longing she had carried all these years. Adrian's brow furrowed slightly. Smart, kind, thoughtful, and here she is surviving on scraps. You are clever, Eliana, he said quietly. More clever than most people I know. Eliana blinked, surprised, and offered a small, shy smile. Days blurred into weeks, and small talks grew into gentle conversations. A glance here, a smile there. Things so subtle, yet so charged, as if the air between them was learning a new language. Adrian tried to push the thoughts away. No, not again. I cannot open my heart, he muttered under his breath. Yet, quietly, inexorably, something was changing. One evening, Eliana had just finished cleaning Adrian's study, dusting the shelves, straightening the papers, and polishing the floor until it shone like wet glass. Adrian sat behind his mahogany desk, going through files with his usual precision. Sir, I'm done for today, Eliana said softly, bowing her head slightly. I'll leave now. All right, he murmured, barely looking up. She walked toward the door, then paused as if she'd forgotten something. The study fell silent, leaving only the faint hum of the air conditioner and the distant honk of traffic from Victoria Island. Adrian closed his laptop slowly, pushed back his chair, and walked to the window. The cool evening breeze tugged at the curtains. "Am I beginning to feel something?" he whispered under his breath. He shook his head quickly. "No. Impossible. Not after." His chest tightened, and yet even as he said it, he knew the truth. Love had quietly sneaked in, unannounced, and it wasn't planning to leave. The mansion settled into a comforting rhythm. Eliana was no longer just a helper. She had become part of the quiet heartbeat of the house. She woke early every morning, cleaned with diligence, cooked breakfast, and carried herself with a calm dignity that fascinated Adrian. He noticed everything: the way she folded the towels neatly, how she arranged flowers in a vase with subtle elegance, how she smiled softly when she hummed little tunes to herself. "Good morning, sir," she would say politely. "Good morning, Eliana," he'd reply, often before realizing he had. And then one morning, as Adrian sat reading a thick book on business strategy and life lessons, Eliana entered to tidy the study. Her eyes flicked to the pages in his hands, and a tiny smile tugged at her lips. "What's that smile about?" Adrian asked gently, putting the book down. She hesitated, then whispered, "That book, I read it at school. It teaches how to stay strong when life is hard. It reminds me that hope is everything." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "You know this book?" "Yes, sir," she replied softly. "I remember parts of it, like one line. A person's true strength is shown in the storm, not in the sunshine. And there's another about hope, how we must keep believing even when life tries to break us." Adrian leaned forward, studying her closely. "She's endured so much, yet she radiates hope. How is that even possible?" "Tell me, Eliana," he said quietly. "Why are you in this situation? Someone as sharp as you. What happened?" The room became very still. Eliana paused, then sat down slowly, eyes lowered. Her voice was calm, yet heavy with unspoken pain. "My parents, they passed away when I was 19. I was supposed to go to university, but life changed. Our relatives took everything my father worked for. I had no one to stand for me. I tried to work, but it wasn't enough. I ended up on the street, sir." Adrian's chest tightened. He felt a sudden surge of protectiveness, of admiration, of something unnameable. "I am sorry, Eliana," he said softly. She lifted her head, calm and dignified. "It's all right, sir. I survived. I didn't let bitterness consume me. I believed one day God would send someone to help me." Adrian leaned back, quietly stunned. She has nothing, yet she carries herself like someone who owns the world already. "If you had the chance, would you continue your education?" he asked carefully. Her eyes widened, shimmering. "Yes, I've always dreamed of it," she whispered. Adrian smiled, warm and deliberate. "Then we'll make that happen." She stared at him, incredulous. "Sir, you do that for me?" "You deserve a new life, Eliana," he said simply. Tears filled her eyes. "Thank you, sir. I don't know how to—" "You already did," Adrian said softly, voice low, "by being who you are." That night, after Eliana had gone to her safe and cozy room in the mansion, Adrian sat at his desk, quietly planning her future. He called contacts, checked schools, and drafted letters, all with a subtle smile tugging at his lips. Meanwhile, Eliana lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her heart beat faster than usual. Why is he so patient, so gentle, so human? Neither of them realized it, but love was already weaving its slow, quiet thread through their lives, careful, subtle, unstoppable. By the following week, everything began to change. Adrian had ensured her admission was processed. Soon, Eliana would walk the path she dreamed of but thought lost forever. And in the background, a mansion once silent now held the heartbeat of a story only just beginning. A few days later, Eliana James sat on the edge of her bed, trembling slightly as she held a crisp envelope in her hands. She had been waiting for this day with a heart full of hope and nerves. Carefully she opened it. Inside was the admission letter, official, stamped and real. She blinked at the words, her chest tightening as tears pricked her eyes. This is not a dream. I am really going back to school. By the evening, the house was quiet, except for the faint ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Adrian Cole, leaning casually against the doorway of the living room, watched her from the shadows, his usual calm demeanor hiding the small excitement in his chest. "Eliana," he said softly, voice gentle but commanding enough to pull her attention. She looked up, cheeks flushed, holding the letter like it was the most precious treasure on earth. "Yes, sir," she replied, though her voice wavered slightly. Adrian stepped closer, hands tucked neatly into his pockets. "Starting today, you are no longer just my housemaid. Your work here is to study, to focus, to build a life you deserve." Eliana froze, her eyes wide. "But sir, I can't just stop cleaning. I want to." Adrian raised a finger, gently but firmly. "No, Eliana, your job now is to learn. I will handle the rest, every meal, every chore, every little thing. You focus on your education. That's all I ask." Her voice broke into a whisper. "Thank you, sir. I won't disappoint you." Adrian gave a faint smile, the kind that rarely touched his eyes, but always left warmth behind. "I know you won't." From that day on, the rhythm of the mansion shifted. Every morning, the sleek black car waited outside to take Eliana to her school, University of Gabby. Each afternoon, she returned, carrying books and dreams heavier than her school bag, and went straight to her studies. Nights were spent in the grand study, where the warm glow of the desk lamp highlighted her concentration. Sometimes Adrian would sit across from her, buried in his work. Neither spoke for hours. But the silence was not empty, it was alive, filled with quiet admiration, comfort, and slowly something more. One evening, the golden lamplight made her hair shine like strands of silk as she bent over her notes, fingers moving swiftly across the pages. Adrian couldn't take his eyes off her. For the first time in years, he felt the sharp, undeniable pull of love in his chest. "So this is what they mean by love," he whispered to himself, hand resting on his heart. His chest tightened with a mix of hope and fear. "I can't run anymore. Not now. Not from her." The next morning, the mansion felt different. Even the chandeliers seemed brighter. Adrian paced the study, his usually precise steps betraying his restless mind. Finally, he stopped, took a deep breath, and summoned a young maid. "Go, fetch Eliana, please. Ask her to come to the study," he instructed. Minutes later, she entered quietly, hands folded in front of her, eyes wide and respectful. "Good morning, sir," she greeted softly. Adrian's lips curved into a small, almost shy smile. "Good morning, Eliana. Sit, please." Only the faint tick of the clock broke the quiet. He watched her for a moment, gathering courage. "Eliana," his voice lowered, careful and deliberate. "There's something I need to tell you." She lifted her eyes slowly, sensing the weight in his words. "Since the day you came into this house," he began, "you've changed everything. Your kindness, your strength, your heart. Every day I've found myself thinking about you more. About us." Eliana's heartbeat skipped. She felt the warmth rising to her cheeks. I have fallen in love with you," Adrian said finally, voice soft, trembling slightly under the honesty of it. For a moment, Eliana didn't speak. Her lips parted, as if trying to form words that were stuck somewhere between fear, joy, and disbelief. Adrian's brow furrowed. "Oh no, she doesn't feel the same. If you don't feel the same," he added quickly, "I will understand. I just needed you to know." Eliana's voice came, soft, almost a whisper. "Mr. Adrian, I've tried to hide it too, but you've been kind to me. You've treated me like a human being when life tried to make me invisible. Little by little, my heart, it belongs to you." The relief and joy in Adrian's chest was overwhelming. He exhaled slowly, a smile forming, one that was real, unguarded, rare. "Thank you, Eliana," he said quietly. She smiled, shy but radiant, tears threatening to fall. "Thank you for seeing me." That evening, Adrian asked her out. Just a quiet dinner. Nothing flashy, just them. She accepted, her smile brighter than Lagos city lights at night. When she stepped out in a simple, elegant dress he had arranged, even the maids paused, mouths slightly open in admiration. Adrian's eyes softened. "You look beautiful," he murmured. Eliana lowered her gaze, voice trembling. Thank you. The restaurant they went to was the kind where lights were low, music gentle and laughter soft. They talked, they laughed, they shared little stories, some funny, some serious. They learned each other's hearts in that soft glow. Maybe God remembered me, Eliana thought, sipping her drink. Love is real, Adrian thought, quietly watching her smile across the table. In the weeks that followed, their lives together became a blend of learning, laughter, and gentle romance. Weekends were for walks along the beach, shoes in hand, toes digging into the sand. Sometimes soft dinners with music that carried them into quiet, endless conversations. Adrian never overstepped, always calm, always respectful. One afternoon, he surprised her with a small gift bag. Eliana, he called gently. She approached, cheeks pink with curiosity. Not sir, he said softly, voice warm. Call me Adrian. She blinked, heart fluttering. Okay, Adrian. Inside the bag was a wristwatch, simple, elegant, the kind that spoke more about thought than price. Her hands trembled as she held it, tears forming. This is too much, she whispered. Adrian shook his head, gentle and firm. You deserve good things, Eliana. Don't ever doubt it. Her eyes shimmered as she whispered back, Thank you, Adrian, for being you. Days continued, but life had changed. School, once a distant dream, became a reality. Her grades soared, lecturers admired her dedication. Nights were spent studying, often with Adrian nearby, reading, working, quietly making sure she felt safe, seen and supported. Slowly, quietly, love wrapped itself around them. Not noisy, not showy, but steady, warm and real. The girl who once walked the streets of Lagos, hungry and afraid, now walked with light in her eyes, hope in her heart, and the love of a man who saw her for everything she truly was. And Adrian, he discovered that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could grow into the deepest love, changing even the hardest hearts. If you want to paste the next part, just send it. I'll return it exactly as is. On one beautiful morning, Eliana stepped out of her room wearing a long, soft blue gown that flowed behind her gently, like Brise de Dragam. Her hair was styled neatly, nothing too loud, but elegant enough to announce, I clean up well. Her reflection in the hallway mirror almost shocked her. Downstairs, Adrian Cole, CEO of Cole & Hart Global Holdings, billionaire with silent money, the kind that doesn't shout, stood beside his staircase scrolling through his phone. The moment he heard footsteps, he looked up and froze. His eyes softened like soft bread inside Hotakara. Eliana, he said quietly, you look... wow. Eliana blushed, looking away like someone who was not used to compliments. You look good too, sir? I mean, Adrian. He smiled. That name sounded sweeter coming from her than any boardroom achievement. They entered the car, and the driver zoomed them toward the grand venue at Victoria Island for the inauguration of the same Billionaire contract Adrian had gone to sign the day he first saw her helping the old woman crossing the busy road. Today, he wasn't going alone. He wasn't hiding her. Not anymore. They arrived at the event. The hall was massive. Lights, cameras, journalists, business moguls, politicians forming unnecessary clusters, influencers snapping selfies like their lives depended on it. But as soon as Adrian stepped in with Eliana holding his hand gently, the place changed. Heads turned. Whispers rose. Some women sized her from head to ankle. Some men tried to decode whether she was his new investor or a new prayer point. Eliana, just relax, Adrian whispered. You're with me. She nodded, even though her heart was beating like talking drum. And then trouble entered the chat. Just as they moved toward the stage, a familiar, irritating perfume floated near. That perfume that smelled like expensive wickedness. Someone stepped in front of them. Sandra Wellington. Adrian's ex-fiancée, former queen of packaging, now attached to another billionaire-like luxury handbag. She wore a glittering gold gown, the type that said, I didn't come here to play, I came to intimidate. On her arm was a tall man with money written all over his face. Adrian, Sandra said with a smile so fake it deserved its own award. Long time no see. Sandra, Adrian replied calmly, not blinking. The billionaire beside her stretched his hand. Good evening, Mr. Cole. Pleasure. Adrian shook his hand politely, but something tightened inside him, old memories trying to wake up like bad dreams. Sandra's eyes slid to Eliana. And this is? Eliana smiled politely. My name is Eliana. Sandra widened her eyes dramatically. Oh, what do you do? I'm still studying. Sandra gave a laugh that sounded like wicked bells ringing. Studying? As in student? She raised her voice. Ah, So nothing serious. Interesting. People around turned. Phones tilted subtly. Eliana swallowed hard. Sandra continued louder. So this is what you're doing now, Adrian? The almighty Adrian Cole of Cole and Hart Global Holdings is now dating a girl from... Where exactly? Who is she? No pedigree, no family name, nothing. This is embarrassing. Eliana felt the words hit her chest. Hot tears filled her eyes. Her hands shook. Before Adrian could say a word, she turned and walked out of the hall, rushing toward the waiting car, heart shattered. Adrian stood still for one heavy second. Then something inside him snapped gently but dangerously. His calm face changed. Quiet and very quiet, but very loud. He turned to Sandra. Eliana is more woman than you could ever even pretend to be. Sandra's mouth opened small, like she wanted to respond. He continued, voice low and sharp. She is kind. She is loyal. She is hardworking. And most importantly, she is not a gold digger, a department you practically majored in. Sandra froze. Even her billionaire date like someone who just realized he bought counterfeit. Adrian leaned slightly toward him and said, Bro, shine your eyes. Not everything that shines is gold. Sometimes it's just a glittering problem. Then he walked out, not caring who was watching, not caring about her emotions. Then he stormed out to find his heartthrob. He found her in the back seat, face buried in her palms, crying quietly. Eliana, he said softly, sliding in beside her. Please look at me. She shook her head. Why did she say all that? Am I really not good enough? Do I embarrass you? His heart pained him deeply. Eliana, listen. His voice shook slightly. What she said is nonsense. Empty noise. She doesn't know who you are. But everyone heard her. Everyone looked at me. Eliana, he said firmly, you belong with me. I choose you, not because of where you came from, but because of who you are. Her tears softened. Relief slipped into her chest. He held her until her shaking stopped. They drove home in silence, but a peaceful kind. Later that night, she sat on her bed again, replaying Sandra's insults. A soft knock came. May I come in? Adrian asked gently. She nodded. He sat beside her and for the first time in years opened a piece of his heart. Sandra left me when life got hard. She betrayed me. She made me stop believing in love. He paused. But then I met you, a girl who had nothing but heart, and you brought back everything I lost. Eliana stared at him, eyes soft. I'm with you, Eliana, he said, because my heart chose you. Her tears dropped again, but this time they were warm. Thank you, she whispered. Time passes, but with purpose. Weeks rolled into months. Eliana studied like her life depended on it. Adrian supported her in ways quiet but powerful, buying textbooks, checking on her, making sure she ate, letting her study in his office while he worked. At night, both of them would sit in the study, Eliana reading, Adrian typing, the room filled with soft silence and growing affection. Her grades improved. Her confidence returned, her dreams grew wings. Months passed, then graduation day came. Eliana walked onto the stage wearing her cap and gown, eyes shining like sunrise. First class honours, the announcer called. The hall exploded in applause. Adrian, front row, stood and clapped like she was the only person in the world. Afterwards, she ran into his arms, laughing and crying. We did it, she said. Not long after, Adrian shocked everyone by placing Eliana as one of the board members of Cole and Hart Global Holdings. People whispered, people doubted, people watched, but she proved every single person wrong. She worked with wisdom, humility, strength, not proud, not arrogant, just good, and the company flourished. Then, one evening she returned home humming, but when she entered the living room, she froze. Candles glowed. The room looked like a romantic movie set. And Adrian stood in the centre looking nervous but cute. Eliana, he said, kneeling slowly, from the first day I saw you, I saw light I thought I had lost. Will you marry me? Her hands flew to her mouth. Tears everywhere. Yes, Adrian, I will. He stood. They hugged tightly, both crying happy tears. 3 months later, Victoria Island shut down. The wedding was like heaven's own event. Classy, elegant, soft, beautiful. Eliana walked down the aisle in white. Adrian waited, smiling like someone who finally found home. I choose you, he said. I choose you too, she replied. Everyone clapped, everyone cried, everyone recorded. Their love was no longer accident. It was destiny. A second chance, a healing, a new beginning. And they lived with peace, happiness, and the kind of love that makes angels jealous. Beautiful viewers, thank you for staying with this story till this point. Life is truly unpredictable. One moment you're walking barefoot on the streets, The next moment, destiny is opening doors you never imagined. Moral lessons. Never look down on anyone. Today's nobody can become tomorrow's inspiration. Kindness is a seed. It might grow slowly, but it never dies. Love is not about class, money, or background. It is about character, loyalty, and a sincere heart. Finally, don't let people's hurtful words define you. They didn't create you, so they cannot decide your future. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, comment, and share to someone who needs hope. And if you're new here, hit the subscribe button and join this beautiful family. More powerful stories are loading. Stay tuned.